Yes, last week, after the episode ended, while Nick and I were kind of unpacking the episode, I teased to him that I was like, hey, dude, there's a chance that I'll be getting into Warhammer. And look, I had, Nick and I both have had very kind of light tastes of the Warhammer 40K universe. We both played Bolt Gun. Nick, on top of that, had played the Necromunda.
Yeah, Necromunda.
Yeah, okay. So Bolt Gun, if you've played it, you'll know that it doesn't really give you much of a story. It gives you like an atmosphere and like I think the really kind of the scene stealer in Bolt Gun is the architecture. Just is like you really get an idea of like that gothic futuristic architecture of Warhammer 40K. But with that said, last week was July 4th week, so we had some holidays. I had some time off. I could kind of do things that I've been wanting to do for a while. So the big thing, I as Nick had said, I've played Darktide. But the day of the Darktide, the morning of playing Darktide, I decided to paint my very first Warhammer miniature. And for the audio listeners,
Ooh.
I'm holding up a Warhammer miniature. You'll just have to imagine that it's a cool one. And I liked it so much, I made another one. So I actually have a pack of like, it's an introductory set that Games Workshop sells. It's about $55, was on sale, but it gives you 5 Infernus Marines, which again, you have to literally put together, snap with like this tool that they give you, and then like paint it by hand. But they give you all the paints, they give you all the things you need to actually play it as well. Yes, Ross, I am in Warhammer 401K now. By the way, hello to everybody watching live. Loading retro Ross, hello. So, and by the way, shout out to some of you guys who've actually watched us play Darktide too. But having painted those little tiny miniatures, which my first miniature took about like an hour and a half to paint, and it is like I don't think I quite understood or I was quite prepared for how small they are. Like I knew they're obviously called miniatures, but like I was painting this thing and I was like, there's not a paintbrush that is small enough for me to get like the lines of this thing. But that being said, really cool introduction to the world, and then we went into Warhammer 40K Darktide by Fat Shark. Shout out. Awesome name. But I really didn't know what to expect with Darktide. Nick, have you ever even like glanced at Darktide? I mean, I don't want to overassume.
I've seen trailers and like a few like minutes of gameplay.
Okay.
Just like a very tiny amount.
So I think for me, the surface level description of Darktide going into it was like it's Left 4 Dead in the Warhammer universe. And that was literally all I was expecting. And so it was me, Austin, and Alexa. We were going to play through a co-op. But the first thing, the opening minutes, we were immediately surprised because there is a pretty in-depth character creator. And I'm not just talking about like, customize the way your cheekbones look. I'm talking about like character background. I mean, if you played Cyberpunk 2077, you have to pick 3 different starting points for, your character. This game has, you can pick what planet your character's from, and then that impacts what kind of a childhood you can pick from, and then like what profession you have, and all that leads up to like all that builds to how you start this game, like what your character's kind of background is going into the start of this game and the events that kind of lead up to it. And yeah, it took us about 30 minutes to get through the character creation of just like, okay, do I want this? And then this planet impacts this. And then, I was really into character. So all my kind of everything was built out with like the specific character in mind. And so that was really cool. I mean, first of all, I just wasn't expecting it. So that was really cool. But getting into gameplay, it is very much so Left 4 Dead in the Warhammer 40K universe. But there's a few things. And again, I'm only about 4 or 5 hours in. And so these are first impressions, if anything. So the first thing that kind of really to mention is that you go into a hub that is kind of where everything else happens. So in the hub, you can access your armory to buy weapons and sell weapons. You can pick up challenge rewards, or you can go to the main terminal to get missions and party up and then go do those missions. There is no, as far as I understand, there's no story order to this game. You essentially, there's actually, so when you go to the terminal to pick the mission, you see the missions that you can pick from, but then there's also a quick play mode, which the quick play mode has like 10 to 20%, I think, extra XP. So like it incentivizes you using the quick play mode. And then once you get into a game, it really is like it'll pick a random mission that you can play. It sets you into this world, and you have a task. You and your group have a task that you have to complete. And it's really, you're just mowing down hordes of enemies depending on what kind of build you have. There's a tank character. I'm playing a veteran who's kind of a more soldier-ish character, like a typical first-person shooter type of deal. There's a psyker, which I believe is more of the magic kind of thing. So you have this 4 different classes that you can play as, and going through it, everything that I said about Bolt Gun in terms of like that atmosphere, this game I think gets tenfold. I mean, because there are so many times as I'm playing through Darktide that I'll just like, everyone will be like, all right, let's go to the next mission. And I'll just stop and be like, holy shit, do you see what's up there, dude? Like that's not even the sky up there. Like it's so cool. And the attention to detail here in terms of just building out the world, the parts that you don't see, you know what I mean? Like you're walking through on like ledges and looking down at like just what seems like endless, a cityscape below you. And then, there's other missions where you're on top and you'll look up and there's just like, there's so much more building above you. So it really adds that scale of this planet, which I'm forgetting the name of. It's like something Prime, something Prime. I'm not sure. But regardless of that, it still isn't huge in the story department. I think that the fact that you can play the missions in any order kind of, I think, establishes that kind of pacing. But there's there's cutscenes that push the narrative and develop some stuff, but it's not crazy so far. Again, I'm 4 or 5 hours in, so maybe it kind of picks up. Optimus Prime. That's it. That's the name of the planet. That's where Darktide takes place. It plays really nicely. I luckily have not had too many problems, though. Austin and Alexa have both experienced crashes, and there's also like performance issues in terms of like certain areas you just kind of hiccup in, and like Austin's character, who is like the tank character, as I was saying, has initially like the character has a throwable item, which is a box of grenades. But it is literally just a box. Like there's no grenades in there. It's just you throw the box. But then once you like go through the skill tree and upgrade it, he eventually unlocked a thing where once he throws it, it actually opens up and the grenades come out too. But every time he uses this goddamn ability, it lags everyone's game. Like the grenades just totally like he to the point where I'm like, all right, Austin, prepare me next time you're going to use this shit. So that stuff is a little unfortunate, and I've heard from the people who kind of come in and out of chat that it's just like Darktide has had those problems. But also in chat, we've had people that are like have played the game for 800 hours, so there's clearly a lot of content in this game, and I'm already curious like how maybe approaching it with a different build or a different kind of backstory would impact the gameplay, or just that like what happens. So maybe I'll give it another go after I finish, but I'm not really sure what the end is. So I'll report back once I kind of make more progress in that regard.